welcome to the second edition for our Intersectionality Awareness Month campaign. In case you don't know me, my name is Gabby and I'm founder of Diversity Alliance and co-founder of the Diverse Speaker Bureau. Do check us out. My pronouns are she, her, and today I'm wearing a kind of like jersey black dress. I've got brown skin, long dark hair, which has got like some highlights in it, which have been bleached a little bit by the British sun, so it's gone quite light. I've got my red lipstick on. Everyone knows I always wear it. It's like my power thing. And I've also got my glasses on today, which I don't normally wear, but I've just noticed my eyes are starting to hurt a little bit. So I need to actually start wearing my glasses as prescribed. My background is blurry today, which isn't normally the case, but you can kind of see a hint of the background. It's beige and Chaz is there. Chaz is still alive. I haven't killed Chaz. That's not why the background is blurred. But really, that is all from me. And I'm really excited to introduce our next guest, Bee Gilmore. Bee, will you please introduce yourself to our audience, to our listeners and our viewers?
Absolutely. Glad to be here. My name is Bee Gilmore. My pronouns are they, them. I am sitting in a seemingly empty room with sort of white walls and a yellow door in the background. And there's a hint of a stained glass window sort of gleaming on the side. I've got white olivey skin and a recently shaved head with sort of like a line, a delicate line buzzed on the side of it. And my eyebrow also has a little line in it. And I'm wearing a white t-shirt and got various facial piercings.
That was quite a lot to describe there.
Yeah, I was, when you start looking at yourself, you're like, wow, what do I have going on? I guess I got a lot going on.
You certainly have. Before we kick off, would you mind explaining a little bit about what you do, and also maybe sharing a little bit around, obviously this podcast is about diversity, equity, inclusion and accessibility, and the focus is on intersectionality. And we do look at it in the workplace and from an event context, because events are, our largest audience. And I think it'd be really interesting for our audience to know a bit more about kind of your background and what you do kind of in the world at the moment. And I know you do a huge amount to make a lot of difference. So I'm really excited for you to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll sort of start with just making clear some of my personal perspective. I am a trans person, a trans-masc person, a non-binary person, and a queer person sort of across the umbrella. And so a lot of my work sort of through the experiences of some of my own identities has been working with other people with various marginalized identities. Right now, I'm doing that through a talent management business where I work with thought leaders across different industries with various underrepresented, intersectional, and marginalized identities and helping bring their voices to the right rooms and the most impactful rooms and just growing their brand and their perspective in the world. And I also am a marketing and community building consultant, primarily for startups, helping them grow authentic community and also increase the diversity and representation within their community and also within their company and their culture. That's kind of what I do.
It's a lot, but it's also fantastic. In relation to kind of the work that you do, say you are working with a startup, for example, how do you kind of approach creating that safe environment? I guess I don't like saying safe. This is why I'm pausing a little bit, because I don't think anywhere's safe. Really, everywhere can be an unsafe place, no matter where you are. Even the fun fair, things happen. But creating those environments, I guess, that are environments where people with intersectional experiences who are from underrepresented backgrounds can feel valued, respected, seen, are able to be their authentic selves, for example. How do you kind of support maybe some of those companies in laying those foundations for people that you're trying to bring into those organizations, or those voices that you're trying to amplify? Is there something that you do specifically?
Well, I think, this sort of challenge or topic is a huge reason why I started my business as a talent manager, is because I had my own experiences of realizing how much people of different identities, I would say particularly right now, the trans community, it's very, very challenging, how much each individual person has to really hold themselves in those environments, and how often people are getting it wrong or not understanding or don't know what to say or how to operate or any of that. And so I found that removing a bit of access is actually the first way to protect people. So, for example, like, I am the person that interacts with the companies, not my client, until the very moment in which their like paid service exists. And
Okay,
part of
interesting.
the reason for that is, this is a valuable person with valuable things to say who's worked very hard to create whatever they're creating. And I want to be able to reduce anything that might create a negative experience for that person. And so I am sort of, obviously I have my own identities, but in a way, I've found that like my identities, my pronouns, my look creates almost this like buffer bridge, this introduction to this world where I'm not selling myself and I'm not creating opportunities for myself, but I am putting myself in the room full of people where I do not look like a single person in that room, and sort of able to have that armor on in those conversations. But yeah, limiting access is actually the very first step. And then I get to sort of gauge, like, are these people prepared? Are they ready? Do they understand? And if they don't, that's fine.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to limit the access, because usually this person's coming in to provide a service of expanding people's perspectives. And so the assumption is that the perspectives are not yet expanded. And so in that case, really the best thing you can do is be like, okay, like, we're going to hold off. We're going to protect this person until it's time for them to come in, do their service, do their thing. And then hopefully something will have expanded in you. And maybe the next time they can, they're ready to be invited into the room. So I would say that's sort of number one. And then on the other side, I think working with startups.
I can't wait to hear the next part, but it
Go
just made me think, that takes a lot of integrity, a hell of a lot of integrity, especially when there's money involved, and money can make people do strange things. And I wish that I'd had you in my corner before I've gone into some organizations to do work, because, I think sometimes people don't realize, and notice to my clients, because, majority of them are absolutely fantastic, but they're not having that level of understanding and awareness around language and just how to behave, has put me in sometimes some challenging, uncomfortable, upsetting positions, which no one would know, but it has happened. And I've still got to go and then provide professional service. But having that buffer, I guess I am the buffer for other people as well, but I wish I'd had a buffer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all at certain times need a buffer. And that's a lesson that I've learned, is that, like, in any way possible, if there can be sort of buffers and access, like, even I've noticed, there's some people who hire like executive assistants to handle their emails for them, right? So that it's just like one limit of access between them. That, it's not meant to be hard to get. It's just protection, because, right, it's like, if you're being hired to come into a space to support them in their diversity, equity, anything like that, chances are like they don't know what to do. And then that puts you in a difficult position. And then the other thing I wanted to say is sort of on the like startup side, the company side. When I work with startups, particularly who are trying to appeal to a diverse audience, the number one rule that I will never waver on is, really, you cannot authentically appeal to anyone who is not already in your room making the decisions. Like, if there is a company and it's all cis white men, there's nothing wrong with that. We're ready for that to change. We're working on it right now. But like, for you to be like, oh, we really want to appear to the like Black demographic is inauthentic. It's just inauthentic. So the main suggestion is sort of to say, like, know who you are, know actually like who you can appeal to based on your own experiences. And if you want to diversify your audience, then you need to bring decision makers into the room that share those identities to make the decisions about how to connect with those audiences. So like, I personally am not the person who can help a company connect better to BIPOC audiences. I'm not the right person for that. But what I am the right person for is to say, great, let's hire a Black person in a leadership position in your company and then give them the actual power to like make decisions on how to connect to their community. And I would say the same thing for queer audiences. So, you know, I would say number one is like, we're beyond the point of understanding. It's like, you cannot just be like, oh, we want to be diverse, we want to appeal to diversity. Like, there's been a lot of companies that have done some really embarrassing things in attempt to do that. I'm trying really hard to stop communities from doing embarrassing things. And like, you don't need to be for everyone. You actually have to own that you're not for everyone. You need to know who you're for. And if you want to expand that in any way, you cannot do that unless you actually know those audiences. And the only way you can actually know those audiences is to have someone in the room who is that audience.
On that note, as we kind of are rounding up our conversation, I've really enjoyed chatting with you, Bee. Do you have any, we always ask our guests this question, do you have any books that you might recommend? And it can be around anything. It doesn't have to be around the topic of intersectionality or DEI specifically, but just something that you would recommend to our viewers or listeners today.
Yeah, so I was thinking, you know, I was reading over that was going to be one of the questions. I thought, oh man, you know, what would I have to share? And the first one that came up that I think is just a book that every person should read because it's very short and teaches you a lot about yourself is Sonia Renee Taylor's The Body Is Not an Apology. It's a very powerful sort of deconstruction / activity book that examines the ways in which, especially for anybody with a marginalized identity, feels like they immediately have to somehow apologize for their existence. And that can be like a subconscious feeling, or it can be literally like an active feeling. That one I just think is really valuable. It taught me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about the other people in the room, and definitely feeds directly into our conversation about understanding that context. How can we treat each other better? And then sort of the other thing that came up for me is just that for any person who's sort of really early in their process of understanding intersectionality and what that really means, the sort of philosophy that I come from is that it's time to move away from intersectionality being like cherry picking different kinds of identities that are already sort of boxed together, where it's like intersectionality isn't just like, oh, well, I'm queer and I'm Jewish and I'm AFAB and I'm this and I'm that. The point is every single human being is different, and it is made up of different parts than every other human being. And those parts can change over time. So when you get older, you might have new identities, or you might have a health condition that comes up at some point in your life. And then maybe it goes away and then it can still be part of you. Maybe someone close to you dies and now grieving is a part of your identity. The point is, it is ever flowing and malleable and changing. And with that, I would say, you know, for any person, like literally read a book by any person who has some identities similar to you and some identities not similar to you. And I think so much will make sense, because you'll realize how much more you can relate to someone else's story who's different from you. And also being able, I think, just to see the like complexity and nuance of the human experience, that we're all living such complex and different lives. And it's always changing based on our environment, our experiences, our life. And to me, like that is like really the next frontier of understanding intersectionality, is that it's no longer like even ERG groups. It's no longer boxing people into certain kinds of identities. It's just understanding that we are all made up of things you can see, things you can't see, things that will always be, things that are changing. And from that place, just being able to see people more wholly and make more space.
Well, that's a really beautiful way to end. Thanks so much, Bee. Thank you for your time, for joining me all the way from where you are. I don't want to give away where you are just in case. But thank you. I appreciate with the time difference and everything. Yeah, and thank you so much. And best of luck with all the work that you're doing. You're doing great work. And, you know, I know that you're going to be a huge success in everything that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Gabby.